Hi everyone. Today's subject is reading. Before we continue with our lesson, let's recall some important details that we read last time. So, the text that we read is about a mother who sends a letter to her daughter to express her pain confronting racism. The mother sees her daughter as beautiful, amazing, and one of a kind. However, others don't see her as such simply because she is black. We also get to know that in the past, segregation was strictly defined. Black people knew their place in society. They knew what they could do and what they were not allowed to do. Nobody had to tell them anything. Lastly, the mother and her daughter have opposing views towards the incidents that happen with Maya. So Maya doesn't seem to think that the police officer is asking her if she lives in the area as something to think about. She simply thinks that he's being friendly. However, the mother thinks that he's asking her such questions simply because she is black.
Our objectives today are to contrast or find differences between two characters or things, to fill in the blanks with the correct choice of words, the new vocabulary.
A Letter to My Daughter, Part 2 by Lisa Delpit. Let's continue reading where we left off last time, paragraph number 8. As any mother would, I have a great need to protect you, but it is hard to know how. My childhood experience was different from yours, as was the case in many African American Louisiana families. Our family was a rainbow of colors, from chocolate brown brunettes to peach colored blondes. The history of that reality is a story we'll need to talk about later. I was the light skinned, freckled, red headed child who always got the sunburn whenever we went to the beach. Because of my coloring, I had another role too. When traveling by car, African Americans were not allowed to use the restrooms or other facilities white travelers took for granted. Black families had to develop all sorts of strategies to make a road trip workable. When it was time for a rest stop, one of our ruses or tricks was to pull around to the side of the service station and send in the one who looked most like white to get the key. Then, outside of the attendant's view, everyone would use the facility. In this paragraph, the mother tells her daughter that she really wants to protect her. However, it's hard for her to do so because her childhood experience was different from that of her daughter's. In this paragraph, we also find out that the mother is light skinned, so she doesn't look black, she has freckles, and she has red hair. We also find out that the mother was the one who would be used to trick others whenever they would go on a road trip. So, when it was time for a rest stop, she would be the one to go down and get the keys because she was the one who looked most like white. Decades later, when you were an infant, your aunt and I drove to Mississippi. I had not made that trip for many years, and although segregation was officially over, I still felt uneasy at the rest stops. Any African American would. There were Confederate flags printed on every possible souvenir in the gift shops, and restaurants and gas stations were filled with burly white cigarette smoking men with gun racks mounted in their rear windows. Heart racing, cradling my beautiful brown baby. I suddenly realized I did not know how to protect you from the vicious hatred in some of the eyes that stared at us, or, for that matter, from a society whose very structure privileges some and marginalizes you. So, in this paragraph, take a look at the vocabulary words burly, heavily built, vicious, cruel or violent, privilege, a special advantage available only to a particular person or group, marginalizes, puts aside, ignore, neglect. In this paragraph, the mother tells her daughter about an incident when segregation was over. The mother still feels uneasy. She still feels scared at the rest stops because still people would stare at her baby, and that's when she realized that she did not know how to protect her daughter from the eyes of the people that stared, because they would look in a way that was cruel and violent and full of hate. And that's when she realized that society still marginalizes Maya and black people. So the mother realized, even though that segregation was over, but still people felt that black people were still different. They would still marginalize black people. I have tried to protect you from the disease of internalized racism, of seeing yourself through the eyes of those who disdain you, that infects the souls of so many of our young people. So in this sentence, the mother compares racism to a disease that infects the souls of so many of the young people. When I was in my segregated all-black elementary school, we were told by teachers and parents that we had to excel, that we had to do better than any white kids because the world was already on their side. When your cousin Joey was in high school, I remember berating him for getting a D in chemistry. His response was, "What do you expect of me? The white kids get C's." Recently, a colleague tried to help an African American middle schooler to learn multiplication. The student looked up at the teacher and said, "Why are you trying to teach me this? Black people don't multiply." You know, Maya, I think that may be the biggest challenge you and other brown children will face, not believing the limits that others place upon you. So, again, in this part, the mother compares racism to a disease that spreads and infects everyone. Racism has become part of them. So young people learn racism and it becomes unconscious when they actually make maybe racist remarks or when they do something racist. In this part, also, the mother gives us examples that show that black people are treated in an unworthy way. Black people are born and treated in society as if they can't achieve, that they can't succeed. And that's what one of the kids said: black people don't multiply. This suggests that multiplication is just for white people, that white people are the ones who are supposed to study, learn, achieve, and succeed. But the mother here is trying to open her daughter's eyes and tell her not to believe these things, not to believe the limits that the society is placing upon her daughter. So the mother is trying to open her daughter's eyes to make sure that she realizes that she also deserves to succeed, to achieve, and be a successful human being like any other person.